If there's extra money discovered, or if more money comes in, it also allows the conference committee to make certain adjustments. A lot of times they'll put things in there, contingent on the passage of HB blah blah blah. Then we allocate $1 million to that program that bill creates. Well, they wouldn't appropriate it now. They don't know whether that bill's going to pass. They put that on the wish list at the end of the budget. So that's a good 50 or so to go. So there's probably really more like 300 real amendments. At the end of the night, what they'll do, almost certainly, is just accept all of those Article 11 amendments as one package. And so there'll be just one vote on that. And what they do as a trick to freshman legislators, they'll be there and they go, oh, I have this amendment, it's a great idea. And they say, oh, we think it's a good idea, we want to study it. Why don't we put that in Article 11? and they'll agree to it thinking, oh, I want a big victory. And they'll go back and tell people like you, man, I got an amendment on the budget. And they put it on the wish list. It's got about the chance of, Joe Strauss busting in here and giving me a sack full of money. So, anyway, it's not getting funded ever. So that's what you know about the Article 11 thing. Wanted to talk a little bit about they're going to come in. What we're going to do today, they're going to come in at 10 o'clock, and they're going to have the traditional hour of patting each other on the back and pointing out people in the gallery and talking about dead people. And that's the first hour. And then they'll move on to the budget. They'll lay that out. They'll take a little bit of time. And then the first thing that'll come up, John Otto has what's called a perfecting amendment. Whenever the author of a bill has an amendment that's considered a perfecting amendment, he gets to kind of go first on that amendment. And what it'll do is it's the concept of if he wants to tweak and change things and fix some error that was discovered after the bill came out of committee, well, he can come in and do that. So that's the first thing that'll come up. The big issue with that one is he wants to put an extra $800 million into, some are saying anywhere from $800 million to $3 billion. It's very obvious $800 million on the face of the amendment. How they get that $3 billion number, I don't know yet. But to put that money into public schools under the concept that because of the school finance litigation, we have to put more money in, otherwise the courts are going to come in and slap us. I would suggest to you that they are trying to make hay with the crisis as it exists now, because I'm not so sure that the boogeyman on the horizon, which is the Texas Supreme Court, doesn't come out to be a gentle giant. The Texas Supreme Court could come in and say, this is what they should say, and some of the dissents in the past have said, it is the legislature's job to determine how much money goes to schools and how to do that. It's not the job of the courts to come in and do the legislature's function. Absolutely should be the ruling, and there's a very good chance we have a more conservative court today than we probably ever have in any of these cases in the past. They might have shown the restraint to come in and come down with that ruling. Also, they're judges, so they might say, no, we know better than the legislature. Let's draw it up ourselves. So that's, certainly could come out with some ruling that's against the state. But so they're wanting to do that. So that'll be the first thing, and then they'll get into a big slew of amendments, and they'll be trying to talk people to drop these things. A lot of these amendments are going to get dropped. There's zero chance that they're going to do 300 amendments today. If they did that, we'd be here for a couple days. People will just start like a little bit of attrition. They'll just start dropping. Go ahead.
How do they handle the articles and the amendments in some sort of logical order?
Yeah, the normal order, there's a packet put out, and it actually, they do it by packet page. I think they generally go in the order of the packet. They start with Article 1, and they move down to Article 10. And so I think Article 1 gets into some general government stuff. Article 2 is Health and Human Services. Article 3 is education. Article 4 may be the courts. And anyway, it goes down. And so a lot of those amendments, a big bulk of them are in Article 2 and 3, dealing with health care, dealing with schools. So that probably move through those first, probably in that packet order. The big problem with the packet thing is they release the packet internally, and you know what, the order is there, and then they put it up in a different order on the internet. So you can't trust that amendment thing that they file on the internet. I found last session was a lot of times done in like an alphabetical order or something like that. You couldn't trust that that order had anything to do with the order that they were going to move in. Plus, they're not necessarily bound to move in packet page order either, so it's kind of speaker's prerogative. I was going to say, we're operating under a calendar rule. Some people may have seen this adopted about a week ago. I wanted to explain that concept. The calendars committee is allowed to prescribe rules to govern the floor proceedings on a bill. And so they've done that in this case with the budget. They've adopted a calendar rule. The first part of it was to say when amendments were due, and that was a procedural thing. The bigger portion of it was they put in place what's called the put and take rule. If you want to put an extra $1 million into some program, you have to take $1 million from some other program. What that means is your absolute, your number at the top of the budget is $209 million or something like that. It isn't going to go up. It can't go to 210. It can't go to 230. It's 209. It's always going to be 209. And that has its benefits, doing it that way. And actually, the big change this session, in the past few sessions, they have created a put and take rule that was not only a put and take, but it was a take and put. If you took money out of a program, that had to go somewhere. And there were things, pensions and stuff, you can always shore up some money. You can put the money somewhere useful. But it was a difficulty for conservatives. A lot of times we're thinking, well, I just want to cut some needless program. I don't really care what we do. We can sit on the money just to get rid of this bad government program. They kind of got rid of that. So you're actually going to see some amendments this time that would have violated the old take and put. It just takes. Here we're going to knock $1 million off of something, and that's it. It's just going to cut it away. I think that was a good change this session.
Do they limit the amount of time of debate on each amendment?
Yeah, so the general rule, people are familiar with Senate filibusters in the Senate. The Senate, the rule is any senator can talk basically as long as he wants to talk. There's a 10-minute rule in the House, but you start stacking 10 minutes and you'll realize why it becomes hours and hours. So there's a 10-minute, there's like any member can ask for another 10-minute extension. Basically, there's an automatic granting of another 10-minute extension. So it's effectively a 20-minute debate on an issue, and then there can be extensions even beyond that. But then when you come in with another, let's say you have a motion, and then you have like a motion, another amendment to it, well, then that gives you another 10 minutes. So it can add up, but it actually is a 10-minute rule. And so it does keep things moving along to some degree. I also wanted to talk a little bit, I don't know how many of you caught the point of order called by David Simpson yesterday yesterday and last week on this Major Events Trust Fund bill. Did anybody see that?
I saw the end of it, I didn't see the point of order.
So there's a lot of confusion about this. Among people who are pretty observant. So there's a bill, and I didn't catch this until very late, until he called his point of order. I'm actually kind of ashamed. I should have noticed this myself. He had a bill, they are moving a bill through the legislature right now that would change the entities that are eligible for the Major Events Trust Fund. Major Events Trust Fund is this fund we give out money to deal with the logistics of some sporting event, Super Bowl or whatever, things like that. And it didn't include NASCAR. Well, apparently there was some kind of confusion on the part of NASCAR, and they thought they were going to get a bunch of money, and then we didn't cut them the check because they weren't really in statute. So the legislature came in and said, we want to put NASCAR in there. But we don't just want NASCAR to be eligible in the future. We want NASCAR to be eligible for those events that they already ran. That, if you're familiar with Article 1, Section 16 of the Texas Constitution, is unconstitutional. The Constitution bans ex post facto and retroactive laws. And so this is squarely a retroactive law. If you read it, it says they're putting on this farce that it is clarifying the law. We're not actually, we didn't change the law to include NASCAR. We're clarifying the law that it includes NASCAR. I mean, that's a garbage argument. It's just false. But they went in, and then it says it applies all the way back to when the original act was passed in 1999. So we're changing laws in 1999 now. And so we didn't know the legislature had a time machine, but anyway, so maybe it's a DeLorean. But David Simpson came and offered his point of order. It said, point of order violates Article 1, Section 16 of the Constitution. Strauss did not sustain the point of order. And I'll actually, this is one of the, catch it on video, I'm going to halfway defend the speaker here. I think he's getting a little bit of too much criticism on this point because that is the tradition in the legislature, is that the speaker does not sustain substantive constitutional points of order. Now, they will sustain constitutional points of order that deal with legislative procedure, and I think there'd be open debate over whether a ban on retroactive laws is a procedural rule or a substantive rule. And what I'll make the quick example, we've got a rule against cruel and unusual punishments. If we had a bill moving through the legislature that was, we're going to draw and quarter people, that we would not sustain a point of order on that. You just wouldn't. It's a substantive violation of the Constitution. That's not some procedural technical rule. And the reason is people, as interpretations of the Constitution there's a lot of wide variation on interpretation of what the Constitution says it means, even amongst people who are honest and have a legitimate debate. So you don't sustain that sort of thing. But what that means is that the Speaker is submitting the issue to the members to decide on the vote itself whether that bill is in fact constitutional or not. Everybody there swore an oath to the Constitution that they're not going to pass unconstitutional legislation. And so when they vote on a bill, the first question ought to be, is this bill do I like it, or is this some emergency that I want to take care of? I'm actually fairly sympathetic to the NASCAR people, and I think there probably should be some solution. But it's not, is this a good idea? Do I like it? Will this make good policy? Is it constitutional? That is the first question. And basically 110, 120 members of the legislature said, don't care about that. There was 27 no votes yesterday on the bill after Simpson very clearly laid it out. This is an unconstitutional piece of legislation. So that's how that works. And really, Simpson was great in offering that point of order. He should have offered it. And the Speaker probably should have been more clear that this is being submitted to the body. That's what overruling it in that case means. Not that it's, not a legitimate issue. But the real failure is on the part of those members who voted yes. Every last one of those has failed to fulfill their duty under their oath.
What was that bill number again?
Senate Bill 239? 293. I'm transposing the number. Senate Bill 290. No. So actually, that's another educational point. I think it was House Bill 900 was the original bill that dealt with this. I brought it to the floor because the Senate version of that bill had been voted out, had been through committee, and then been voted out of committee, hadn't been put on a calendar itself. That bill was considered what's called over and eligible. And so you substitute the Senate bill that's over and eligible for the House bill. So when House Bill 900 came to the floor, they did the over eligible thing. They pulled 293 from committee down to the floor and voted on it. And that just kind of moves things quicker through the process.
Well, Simpson, should he have gone with a point of information or introduced a new motion to remove the offending language and force a vote on that wording only?
Well, and that's actually an interesting point. You could have potentially tried to amend the bill to say that it only applies proactive, whatever word I'm looking for, looking forward instead of backwards. Could have done that, would have been an option. He was right in offering point of order on it. Again, it is correct to say that the Speaker would overrule the point of order, but The language saying that I'm going to overrule it, I think misleads the public and the members. I don't think that did a service to people to say, well, the point of order is respectfully overruled. In reality, the speaker is refusing to rule on the point of order, and there's clear precedent on why, but then that point of order is then submitted to the body as part of that vote on the bill. And so they should have been bringing this to the members' attention. That's what they're voting, they're not just voting on a bill. Whether you think it's a good idea, you're voting on this constitutional issue. That could have been made much more clear to the members that it was not. Again,
This vote was yesterday?
it was both yesterday and on Thursday. It originally came up on Thursday, and Simpson offered the point of order. The bill was it was overruled. They voted on it. I think 28 members voted no. Came back on Monday. He did it again. And 27 members voted no. Don't know who the guy was that switched or if he was gone or whatever.
But the official vote will be on yesterday's journal.
Yeah, it'll be on yesterday's journal. That's correct. So, but it's an interesting one. It's very well. I mean, it is good to see that there's at least 27 who care. I mean, some of those members are not. I don't know. It's just interesting. It's a real gauge of integrity to go look at that list. I'll cut off. I'll probably talk longer than normal about stuff, unless anybody has any important questions. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tony.